legal to do a podcast now. She's not a horse person. She's a person horse. People like to be choked. Something we like. Hello, everybody, and welcome back into the Sports Idiot Studio here in the Sports Idiot Shed. I am your host, Johnny Disco, and today we are talking about one of my all-time favorite sports, golf. Now, if there's any sport that I might be slightly spotistic in, it would be golf. I know quite a bit about the sport of golf, and I'm excited to take you guys through it. So today we're going to do something called a Montreal. I'm sure you guys are like, duh, dude, we know what a Montreal is. You don't need to explain it. But here's a brief little explainer. It's a 514, of course, which is the area code for Montreal. 5 things we love about golf, 1 thing we find confusing about golf, and 4 things we absolutely hate about golf. It's a Montreal. And you guys are probably like, did you just make that up for the show? I did. I very much did. And we'll see if I go 1 extra on the loves, it might be a 614, which is a Columbus. Not as sexy as Montreal. So we're going to stick with Montreal. So, guys, golf. As you guys probably know, I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, where golf is king. It is everywhere. My parents were divorced. Thanks for bringing it up. But they lived on separate golf courses, right? And at one point, my dad moved to another house, and that was also on a golf course. Pretty much everyone in Scottsdale lives on a golf course. Other kids in America, they would party in like the woods. We would party on golf courses. You know, it'd be like, yo, meet me at the bunker on the 8th green at 8:30. Bring your own solo cup. I remember one time we were on some course, and every course had a dude in a Ford Ranger with the little police light, you know, on the driver's side. And they would kind of cruise through the different developments, making sure that there weren't any kids partying on the golf course like us. This Ranger pulls onto the course, flashes the light, and it is like a run as fast as you can. I gassed it, you guys. I went all the way to 100. I redlined it immediately, and I only ran for maybe like 12 seconds before completely gassing out and having to catch my breath. And I would have been dead weight if the guy in the Ford Ranger was actually in any way motivated to catch us. He wasn't. He just was waiting for his shift to be over, if I had to guess. So I grew up playing golf. I absolutely love golf. It's a big part of my life. I am very excited to take you guys through the Montreal. So let's get right into it, guys. 5 things that we absolutely love about the game of golf in reverse order. We'll start with number 5. Golf is a honor game. Not a lot of sports lead with, be honorable, which I think is really great. The first rule of golf is you will play the course as you find it and your ball as it lies. You probably remember that scene in the golf movie Happy Gilmore where the guy's like, hey, I had to play it off of Sasquatch's big fat foot. Play it as it lies. And that's a thing in golf, right? It's up to you what you want to do with the ball. The only person that you are playing against in the sport of golf is yourself and the course. A lot of people think you might be going head-to-head with the other people you're playing with, but in reality, golf is against the course. Everyone's trying to play the course better than each other, but they're not directly competing with each other. And what underpins all of that is honor. You are supposed to be honest and record the score that you got, and you're supposed to play the ball as you find it, even if it's in someone else's divot or if it's in a really tough position. And what's cool about golf is that's fully up to you. In golf, there's a fairly profound urge to cheat, right? You have a bad hole and you're like, I don't need to write a 6 in the scorebook. I can write a 5 and then I'll feel better about myself. But truthfully, you'll feel worse about yourself because you know you cheated. Moving right along to number 4, one of the coolest aspects of the game of golf is food and beverage. There is a huge food and beverage component to the game of golf. If you've never played golf, typically on the course, there is a person who drives around in like a wagon that's full of alcohol and snacks and sometimes pre-made sandwiches. Some of them even have hot dogs. The person who drives that is called the cart girl. And maybe one time in my life I've seen a male driving that thing, but it's usually a woman. And for whatever reason, the term is cart girl. Denver Bronco cheerleading baddie, you were a cart girl for a while, right?
You betcha.
Wow. Where was that?
Silverado Golf Course, Scottsdale, Arizona, 2012 to 2016.
Whoa, you got the years on deck ready for us. Did you like it?
Loved it.
We love when the cart girl comes around because that means, hey, we get to have little snacks and treats. Golf is played over 18 holes, so it's 2 sets of 9. And in the middle, you have something called the turn, where you get to typically go into like a little snack shack, and some people get a hot dog. You can get a little drinky drink. I love getting a Snickers on the golf course. That's like my little golf treat. I love looking at the little veins on top as I eat it. Little pro move for you guys. Next time you're on the golf course, order the chicken salad cup. That is what the pros are ordering these days. Everyone used to be on the hot dog train, but the phosphates and the glyphosate, whatever. The other F&B thing that you guys should know about is that the golf cocktail of choice is called a transfusion, a tranny, if you will. They're incredible. I don't drink alcohol, but back in the day, I had one, and I was like, this is dangerous. As white people like to say, get these transfusions away from me. These are dangerous. It is vodka, grape juice, ginger ale, and lime juice. So it's kind of purple. And I don't know why it's called a transfusion. I get the feeling that it's like, kind of looks like a blood bag. Imagine you're having the worst 9 holes of golf of your life. You're having the worst possible time. And your buddy you're playing with is like, yeah, hey, man, don't be so down. It's the turn. Do you want to get a couple hot dogs, a couple chicken salad cups, a Snickers, and 3 or 4 trannies? And you're walking out of the snack shack and imagine it, you got 2 dogs, you got the chicken salad cups, you're holding 2 trannies, now you got 2 other trannies in this arm, and you got a Snickers coming out of your breast pocket. Are you having a bad time anymore? No, you're having the absolute best time, and you're about to slam some glizzies, eat a chicken salad cup, put down a couple of trannies, and be like, okay, I'm back. I'm officially back. It's the back 9. Let's send it. And who knows? That back 9 could be the best back 9 in your life. Something about golf is it's a long game. You play 18 holes, typically takes about 5 hours. So there's a lot of streaks in there. You are sometimes playing really well. Most of the time you're playing really bad. And we'll get into that in a little bit. Number 3, guys, counting down on the things I absolutely love about the game of golf. Traditions. There are so many cool traditions in golf, you guys. The first one that comes to mind is the family tradition. Now, most golf courses, they're separated into 2 pretty much camps. There's public courses and private courses, and both of them tend to have once a year, they'll have a father-son golf tournament. I've had the privilege of playing in a few of those. When I was a young kid, I played with my dad, and it was this incredible experience. I was definitely the youngest kid out there at like 14. All the other people were men. The camaraderie that you feel around all of these sons and fathers on the golf course, it was visceral. It was very palpable. And when I was 14 years old, I've had the chance to play as a grown-up with my stepdad, and it's the same exact vibe. It's very much probably the highest vibe event at my stepdad's club. Like, you can just see how happy people are to be spending time with their children in the company of their friends. What's funny about all of these men, they're all, upper boomers, and they are just so mean to each other. They just, every time you see your friend, it's like, hey, Bill, who let you out of jail? Or something like that. It's always a little put down. And there's an interesting masculine dynamic going on there, which is you have to be able to take a little ribbing and you have to be able to dish. Another great golf tradition is the golf trip. Your boys. And, there are girls' golf trips. My mom goes on golf trips all over the world. And it's a great way, to do tourism. She'll be like, hey, we're playing a course in Phuket, Thailand. And it's like, fun. Sounds fun. I played on my honeymoon. I played in both places I went on my honeymoon. Huge flex. I played in Nepal and I played in Bali. We'll talk about those in a little bit. But the boys' golf trip, so much fun. I just went on one recently. The golf is the canvas, the laughter, the friendship, the meals, and just reminiscing is the paint. And by the end of the weekend, you have this beautiful masterpiece of a experience with your friends. You feel like little kids again. You know, it's that feeling of like, oh, we're just kids having fun, not hurting anybody, making jokes, laughing, being friendly. It's really special when you're out there with the guys. Another cool tradition, at the end of every round of golf, you remove your cap and you shake your partner's hand, which is kind of cool. If you watch a golf tournament, you'll see the end of the tournament on the 18th hole. The winner will remove his cap and, celebrate, but they'll shake the hands of their partners and their partners' caddies. And the final tradition that I just absolutely love, can't talk enough about, is the Masters golf tournament. So every year in early April, there is a golf tournament that takes place in Augusta, Georgia, which is about 3 hours east of Atlanta. I currently live in Atlanta, and when it's the Masters tournament time, people around Atlanta will be like, have you ever been to Augusta? And you'll be like, no, I just drove through it. And they're like, well, there's not much to see. It's not a very special place, except for the Augusta National Golf Club. So it's this kind of like truck stop town. I mean, there's a town there. It's a real town, but it's not super duper fancy. And the Augusta National Golf Club, which is in Augusta, is where they play this tournament, the Masters. I think the Masters captures the traditions of golf better than any other tournament, maybe even too much. It's sometimes a little sicky sweet, how traditionally it is. It is definitely, the main cathedral for the sport of golf, this golf course in Augusta, Georgia. It is very beautiful. It is very well kept. Something that I learned living in Atlanta, now in Georgia for the first time. When I used to watch the Masters tournament, I thought, wow, Augusta must be a really special place. But then you live in the state of Georgia, and the whole state is insanely beautiful in early April. There will be a bush in your neighborhood that's just a bush for 51 weeks of the year. And then that 1 week, the second week in April, it is like the most beautiful pink azalea flowers you've ever seen. And it's like, my God, that was just a totally innocuous bush. I never thought about it one time, and now it is popping. Interesting backstory on Augusta is it is so prim and proper that the broadcast, they don't call it the back nine because that's too close to the word backside, which would be improper. So they call it the front nine and the second nine. If you've ever listened, the guy who does it on Sunday, his name's Jim Nance. He's a legend, an absolute legend. It's very purposeful, slow. It's beautiful. I mean, it's like truly an act of art. He'll be like, over to 2. And that's it. And that's all he'll say. The Masters tournament is one of 4 majors, which is kind of unique to golf. Like most sports, they have a regular season and then a playoff and then a championship. Golf has a regular season, and then interspersed throughout the regular season are the equivalent of their playoffs. These 4 major tournaments. There's the Masters, the US Open, the Open, which is also called the British Open, and then the PGA Championship. Now, they're all very intense. These are the ones that the pros really, really want to win. The Masters is very traditional and very exquisite. The Open is typically very hard and of the traditional style of golf, which is link style golf, right along the water, a lot of wind, sometimes very wet, like it'll just rain the whole tournament. The US Open is kind of cool because it is an effort to figure out who the best golfer in America is that year. So you have your professionals who, the top 50 or so qualify, but then they have play-in tournaments all over the United States, US Open qualifiers, where amateurs will go and compete. And every year in the US Open and in the Masters, there are amateurs. There are people who are just trying to break in, trying to make their way in the golf world, and they get to play on this huge stage with all the bigs. For the US Open, what's kind of cool is they make it super duper hard. That's the thing. They're like, we don't want the best guy, the winner, to be 15 under par. We want them to be par. And so they make the course incredibly challenging. That means, the rough is really long. The greens are super duper fast. So when the ball's on the green, it's very hard to putt. And every year, the golfers will say they've lost the course. Yeah, they've lost the course. It's out of control. Number 2 on my things that I love about the game of golf is the nature aspect. Golf is a incredibly animalistic endeavor. At the upper level, there's something very interesting going on. I have a very close friend whose dad was a professional golfer and is to this day a very, very, very good golfer. anytime I get the chance to play with him, it's always such a treat because he hits the ball just so well, which is so cool. But he also is very vocal about what he's doing. He'll have a shot in front of him and he'll stand behind it and he'll be looking at the ball and he'll be looking at his target where he's trying to hit it. And he'll have the club in his hands and he'll be taking light swings, and out loud he'll be like, okay, I have 180 degrees to the front of the green against the grain, so that's going to knock a few yards off. The green is slightly elevated, so that's going to add a few yards on. The wind is in my face blowing across the green, so I'm going to have to hit a fade and I'm going to swing it about 80%. And then he steps up to the ball and he does it. He does it for every shot. He is turning off his prefrontal cortex, all of those alarm bells that are in your brain that are like, okay, it's the father-son tournament and you're here with your son and you're here with your son's friend and all these people are watching. And if you hit this wrong, they're all going to laugh at you. No. He's not doing any of that. He's purely in the animal world thinking about what is in front of him. It's so powerful when done correctly because you truly go to like a transcendent place. Like you've probably heard of athletes playing out of their mind, being in a flow state. When you're playing really good golf, you are not thinking about anything. Everything is quiet. You have the task in front of you and you just execute on it. And it's one of the very best feelings. The nature aspect, I love birds. I'm a big birder, so there's a ton of birds on golf courses, typically because they have like big water features, so you'll see all sort of waterfowl. You'll typically tend to see some big predator birds, like some hawks. Sometimes it's a desert. Sometimes it's a mountainy region. Sometimes it's a dense forest. I just played recently in Georgia, and it was these rolling hills that were kind of cut out of a forest. So on both sides, you have these huge trees and you're just kind of winding your way through this river valley. It's so beautiful. Like I mentioned, I went to Nepal, Flex, for my honeymoon. And when I was there, I was like, hey, look, I would like to play golf. Can you arrange that to our travel agent? So we go to this resort that has a golf course. I rent a bag. I'm paired up with this caddy named Bauda, who was a legit Sherpa. Like he was in Kathmandu, but he was of the Sherpa people. So in golf, at some courses, you get a caddy, which is a person who knows the course. They carry your bag and they'll give you kind of like tips. So I was the only person on this golf course, me and Bauda. He was so cool. He would I would, be smoking a cigarette and I'd be like, Bauda. And I would hand him a cigarette and then go and miss this putt so bad. He would give me all these reads and I would just not be able to actuate them. But he and I are just hanging out. It's this very beautiful setting. We are coming down this hole and up on this like elevated hill, there's a guy in like an outpost with a rifle. And I was like, Bauda, what's that dude for? And he goes, leopard. And so I had no idea, but apparently there are leopards in the jungle around this course and they have to hire a guy with a gun just to hang out up there. And, you're wondering, like, is he really paying that close attention? It's like, who's overseeing him? Who's his manager? It's like, hey, man, 2 golfers were mauled by leopards last week. You didn't even fire 1 shot. I'd love to know that guy's performance record. There was one hole that had this huge hill on the right side, and Bauda was like, don't go right. And I was like, why? And he goes, leopard. Okay, Bauda, we're not going to go right. And I just piped it so far right. I was like, Bauda, I'm sorry, but I need that ball. No, I didn't. What was also crazy cool about this course was there was like Nepalese eagles, these huge eagles flying around. They had Himalayan deer, which they call it Himali. They don't say Himalaya, like, we're going to go to the Himalayas. They don't say that. They say Himali. There were these Himalayan deer. Like, I'm not kidding you guys. This sounds like hyperbole. It's not. There were like 100 deer in this area with like 4 or 5 bucks with like huge antlers. And they were just all like going around, grazing, doing whatever they do. Like I said, I was the only person golfing, but there were these like 8-person golf carts that were encased that kept coming by, and they were full of Chinese tourists that were going to see the animals. So there was this one hole where, I'm on the tee and the cart that these Chinese tourists came up behind and they were like, do you mind if they watch? And I was like, sure, I don't care. And I skied it. I hit it really high. Did not hit a good drive. And they were like, oh, they were so excited. And I was like, thank you. The other crazy thing, you guys, there were macaque monkeys all over the course. So these are they're like 50 million years away from us, on the scale of near human primates. Like chimps and bonobos are maybe 3 million years away. Those are our nearest near human primate relatives. Macaques are like 50 million years back, but they're ground-based and they're familial. They have little nuclear families. So they'll be hanging out. There was like hundreds of them all over the golf course, and they'll have their little babies hanging onto them. And Bauda was like, "Do not look them in the eyes." Bauda, it's like keeping me alive from leopards and macaque monkeys that'll rip my eyes out. There's so much cool nature in golf, and you can play golf all over the world and appreciate the animals. There's something in golf called the golf gods, and these are beings that are benevolent in nature, but when you have a good round of golf, it's because the golf gods let you, and it's because you did some things that they were like, okay, we see you, thank you for doing that, and you will be rewarded with good golf coming up. If you're playing bad golf, you've pissed off the golf gods in some way. Cool ways to get on the good side of the golf gods: fixing your ball mark. Like when you hit a ball into the green, sometimes it'll leave a divot. A good move is to fix that. Not everybody does it, but a good move is to fix that. Another one is to fill in your divot in the fairway. Sometimes you'll take up a big gator tail or beaver tail. Gator tail is something else. A beaver tail. And you have this little sand thing on your cart, and you're supposed to fill that in. That's a golf god move. Now to the number one thing I love about golf, and is that, in my opinion, golf is one of the most sincere forms of freedom. There's a guy named Bishop Barron. He is the bishop of the Winona, Rochester, Minnesota diocese. He's kind of broken through as a social media influencer type for the Catholic faith. And he has this awesome sermon or whatever they do called, I don't know what it's called, but it's about freedom. And he makes this really cool argument where he talks about how some people think of freedom as like, I can go out on a golf course and I can swing the club any which way I want. And it doesn't matter where the ball goes because I'm free to do it that way. There's nothing wrong with never learning how to play golf and just hitting it any which way. There's nothing wrong with that. And he makes the argument that, a true form of freedom is like my friend's dad, who sits there and actuates reality. He sits there and casts a spell on the ball saying, look, this is what's going to happen. And then he does it. He creates it. Seeing all of the obstacles that are ahead of you in a golf shot and then figuring out how you're going to crack the code and then cracking it is next to godliness. It's this very cool, transcendent feeling where you feel so triumphant when you do it right. You don't often do it right. You mostly do it wrong. Now, I think I'm going to make it a Columbus. I'm going to do a 614, and I'm going to add one more. And that, of course, is Tiger Woods. Every golfer, no matter what, loves Tiger Woods. And it's the kind of situation where it's like, hey, Tiger, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more times. If you mess up 9 more times, we're going to have a conversation about how unbelievably loyal I am to you. If you keep messing up 9, 10 more times, you better watch out. He can literally do no wrong in the golf world. All of us would be like, but hey, why don't we get good again? Why don't we go win some tournaments? Go Tiger mode. What do you think? We love him so much, and I think it's because he's fallible, because he's had kind of a rough road that we love him so dearly. He, in my mind, is the modern hero. If you know any golfer, they absolutely love Tiger. To witness someone like Tiger battle back from all of this adversity, it's like why he's a hero. It's so redeeming. If someone came up to me and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about picking up golf, I'd be like, don't. Pick up tennis. Do something else. Like, golf is so challenging. I have a friend who I played with. This was in 2017. He couldn't get the ball off the ground. This last year in 2024, he hit even par. And it was a huge deal. I was freaking out. He called me and I was freaking out. So 7-ish years of grinding. There's that great meme, the two people laying in bed and they're facing away from each other and the wife's like, he's probably thinking about other women. And the guy's like, Tiger, 98, Jim Nantz announcing, he hits a low chip shot high on the green, has to have it trickle down. It rolls, and it goes in. And that's his famous shot from Tiger Woods. I mentioned earlier I was on that golf trip. I'm sure our wives were like, I wonder what they're up to, if they're being bad boys. We were in the Airbnb watching Tiger highlights. We were watching the top 50 Tiger shots of all time and loving every single second of it. Probably obviously the number one shot is from the Masters. Tiger has this very challenging chip shot. He's in the red, which means it's Sunday. He always wears red on Sunday. Hits it high up on this hill and it trickles down, and it looks like for 1 second that it's not going to go in. And then it rolls in. There's the Nike swoosh in there just so. And then Jim Nantz comes in. He goes, in your life, have you ever seen something as spectacular as that? And the place is going absolutely nuts. And he's doing this like, yeah, like move, but he has a really bad high five with his caddy. People don't want to talk about that. So guys, that was the first part of the Montreal, the things that we love about golf. Let us know if there's anything you love about golf that we missed, and let's get into the unpaid ad. Here we go. Hey guys, we just want to take a quick moment and thank this week's unpaid advertiser. Of course, that is Abreva. Thank you, Abreva, for not sponsoring this episode or having anything to do with this show. Abreva is a topical herpes medicine that doesn't really work. As someone who grew up with herpes on their mouth in middle school once a month, cold sore, Abreva would come in and say, hey, it's not going to be 14 days, it'll only be 11 days. Oh, thanks, Abreva. It comes in a little metal tube that when you put in your pocket, it creates a lot of pressure. So when you open it, it squeezes out everywhere. And guys, it's like $45. It's like more valuable than gold. So Abreva, thank you guys so much for not sponsoring this podcast in any way. Let's get back into the action. Big thank you to Abreva for not sponsoring this episode. Thank you guys so much. Moving right along in the Montreal, we're going to go to the confusing section, which is the subject of handicapping. Now, handicapping is a part of golf that was designed to create parity between players. The idea is that two players of varying skill levels can play together, and using handicapping, they can create an even and fair game. How handicapping works is it's pretty much like an average of your scores. So you go out and you play golf, and let's say it's a par 72. So you have 72 strokes to complete the round. Most people are shooting well above par. It's actually kind of a misnomer. Someone would be like, yeah, we went to the Four Seasons, and actually it was kind of a subpar experience because the concierge, I don't know which way to say that word. The concierge didn't get our lunch order right. It was a subpar experience. If you had a subpar golf experience, that is call everyone you know and tell them, yo, bro, I shot a 72. I shot a 71. I've played golf my whole life. Best round I've ever had is a 79. Subpar is good. It's what you want. So let's say you go out and I had my best round ever and I shoot a 79. Okay. So that's 7 over par. I put that score into a computer, tends to live inside the clubhouse. You can also do it through an app. And what that system will do is it'll look at every other score that people posted on that course that day, and it'll create an index, a number based on how everyone else performed and how you performed against your baseline. So if, as I said, 79 was the best round I've ever had, let's say I usually hit around an 85, my handicap index is what it's called, will go down slightly. It's not directly an average. So like if I went out all the time and I shot an 82 consistently, I wouldn't have a 10 handicap necessarily. It's based off of the difficulty of the course, how everyone else played the course that day, the weather that day. There's a lot of things that actually go into it. As I said, this is to create parity among golfers. So if I go out, let's say I have a 10 handicap and I'm playing against somebody that is a 0, which would be called a scratch golfer, how it would work is on 18 holes, those holes are ranked by their difficulty. There's a number 1 handicap hole on the course all the way up to 18, which would be the easiest hole. Now, if I was playing as a 10, if I was playing against someone who was a 0 on holes 1 through 10 of difficulty, I would get a stroke. So we're playing, I shoot a 5, they shoot a 4, I would get 1 stroke off, so it would be a 5 gross, and the net would be a 4. What you can imagine is if you have a really good golfer with a mediocre golfer, or even a really bad golfer, you can administer these strokes, and that creates a more equal playing field. How you get a handicap is a little confusing. It's gotten easier over the years, but what you used to have to do is join a club. So if you were wealthy and you joined a country club, then that would, be easy. You would belong to the country club that you joined. If you're just a normal person, you'd have to find kind of like a regional thing. It'd be like, for instance, I'm from Arizona, so it'd be like the Phoenix Golf Association Club. And you would go in and register your handicap under that group, which was confusing and kind of hard. To get a handicap, you have to submit 5 18-hole rounds or 10 9-hole rounds. So you actually have to play a pretty good amount of golf, and that'll get you your starting index. Another name for it is your GIN number, which is Golf Handicapping Index number. And what's that? That's used, like I said, to create parity among players, but it's also used for tournaments. It's pretty much letting people know what kind of golfer you are. If you know someone in your life who's a big golfer, if you want to impress them, say, hey, what's your index? If it's a negative number, usually people will be like, I'm like a 7. That means they're pretty good. As it approaches 0, it gets better. It's kind of confusing. I mean, this is the confusing section, so that makes sense. It's represented as a negative number. I don't know why, but once you go past 0, it's a positive number. So if you're ever talking to someone who's really, really good, they'll be like, yeah, I'm a +2. That means that person is a freak of nature. That is incredible. Hundreds of rounds of golf, they have averaged below par. They are truly a subpar golfer, which is not to say they're a bad golfer. They're actually a very, 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 very good golfer. Now, handicapping goes sideways in one way where people lie about their score. It's called sandbagging. So let's say I belong to a club and the big tournament is coming up. I'm naturally like a 7 handicap. I'm not personally, like John Disco is not a 7 handicap. I'm more like a 14. But let's say I play around a 7 or an 8, and then I go for like a month before the tournament and I post a bunch of 15 over pars. That brings my index number up. So I went from like a 7 to like an 11, and that's 4 more strokes that I'm going to get on my opponent if we're equally matched, if they're a 7 as well. So that's called sandbagging. The thing I don't like about handicapping is it's not super duper fair. Like on any given day, a moderately good amateur can have a pretty big swing. They can shoot maybe 5 to 10 over par on a good day, and then they can also shoot like 25 over par on a bad day if they have a really bad day. If 2 people of equal skill are playing, it doesn't really come into effect. But if you have a pretty big disparity, like a really good golfer with a medium golfer, it doesn't always shake out well. This also comes into effect when you see this a lot online. It is like a scramble. So what a scramble is a tournament format where everybody hits their ball off the tee, and then the foursome, the 4 people, they take the best one. And then everyone hits a ball from there. Of those 4, they take the best one of those. Scramble scores are always really low because it's the combination of 2 or 4 players taking the best shot, seeing the putt multiple times, but you see this online a lot. People will come into the clubhouse on a scramble and they'll have like a 30 under par. Okay, so you hit an eagle on every hole. Eagle again is 2 under par. Very hard. I've had 2 of them in my life. It is an avenue for cheating. So unfortunately, that's the reality with handicapping. It is kind of confusing, and I remember getting my first handicap and being like, it says I have a 9 handicap. That's pretty good. That doesn't mean I always hit 9 over par. So that is handicapping, guys. Remember, if you have a good golfer in your life, say, hey, what's your index? And they'll be like, wow, I didn't know you knew that kind of stuff. Let us move on to the final section of this Montreal, which is the things I hate about the game of golf. I've narrowed this list down to 4 things. There are probably more, but let's dive right in. Number 4, the range. All right, so any golf course, most golf courses, they have the course, which is 18 holes, and then they'll have a practice facility, which is like a big wide open field. Now, the thing I don't like about the range is it's not really equivalent to playing the game of golf. When you go out on a golf course, very rarely do you have a flat lie where your feet and the ball are on the same plane. Typically, the ball is a little above your feet or a little below your feet. Sometimes you're standing in a weird way because the ball is in a weird position. So it's really hard to create those circumstances on the range. It's also, they're not super accessible. Like I live in Atlanta. There's one range in Atlanta, like Metro Atlanta, that's public. If you belong to a private club, then you go to your private club. But the thing about golf is that being good at golf is really a function of time and money. If you have the money, you join a private club, which would also indicate you probably have some time, so you can go out there and practice. If you are busy and you don't have the money for a private club, you're not very good at golf. Like you kind of suck, like me. You might know how to hit the ball, but when you go out, it's like, yeah, I just don't play enough. And I could go to the range 6 days a week and I might improve my ball striking, but that doesn't necessarily equate to lower scores. Where I lose strokes in golf is around the green. That's where most people lose strokes, right? So I hit a drive off the tee, and that goes above 300, whatever, and then I'll hit my second shot, which is like a mid-iron. That's like 170 yards. But now when I'm within like 50 yards of the green, that's where you rack up a ton of strokes. So it's kind of hard to go to a driving range and practice that like short 45-yard approach shot when you're hitting it at flag and it's not super duper realistic. The number 3 thing I dislike about the sport of golf is the party aspect. I know in my love section I talked about food and beverage, I talked about trannies, I talked about how fun it is to get loose on the course, but like all good things, there is a limit. When COVID hit in 2020, a lot of indoor recreation shut down, right? Playing basketball at the gym, working out, things like that. And so golf really exploded. It was one of the only things that you could still do. I remember I was living in Scottsdale, Arizona at the time, and my wife and I went to go meet some friends to go play pickleball, and they had a chain on the court. Maybe the first time that it really hit me. It was like, oh, wow. This isn't just like, bird flu that we had in whatever that was, 2012. Like, this is the real deal, and I don't like it. Because I want to play pickleball, right? I live in Scottsdale. I should be guaranteed pickleball. It's in the Constitution of the state of Arizona. All citizens have access to golf courses and pickleball. But golf was still around. And so a lot of amateur hobbyist people got into golf, and it was really hard to get a tee time. Kind of a funny story, actually. I was living in Los Angeles shortly thereafter. I moved there in 2021. You couldn't get a tee time at any course. It was impossible. And I knew something was up because when you go on a golf website to book a tee time, all the best times, like Sunday morning at 9 a.m., that's going to go really fast. Like if you can book a tee time 7 days in advance, that goes right away. The website they'll list tee times that it's like $3 and you go off after the sun goes down. You can really only play like one hole, maybe 2 holes, but that will be listed on the site. You could sign up for that if you want. You're not going to play a lot of golf, but you can do that. Even those were booked. And it turned out it was actually a Korean mafia operation. It was a bot that was set up to book every single tee time. They did a sting operation that found out that this was done by the Korean mafia, and it kind of freed up some of the tee times. But golf has been very impacted by the growth of the game. A hashtag that the PGA, the Professional Golf Association, uses is hashtag grow the game. And that's a message that's like, let's get more kids involved, more women involved, more minorities involved. Hashtag grow the game. And in response to that, a popular hashtag is hashtag shrink. It got a little too out of control. The partying aspect of the game, pretty much anytime you go out to a course, you can see people getting aggressively drunk. The Denver Bronco cheerleading baddie, she was the cart girl at Silverado. Denver Bronco cheerleading baddie, were people getting absolutely blitzed at Silverado?
Every single day, baby.
Is that how you made a lot of your money?
Oh, yeah.
That's how she made a lot of her money. It's beers, it's shots, let's get the cigars going. It's not a pretty picture. Right? It doesn't help your golf game for most people. I have a friend actually who, when he gets really drunk, he becomes like unbelievably good. The other thing is, golf is primarily played with a golf cart. If you are drunk and you're driving a golf cart on a golf course, perfectly fine. If you were to take that golf course off of the property and go onto like a road, you could get arrested for a DUI. It's pretty dangerous. You can see videos online of people driving carts into lakes, driving over other people. As I mentioned in the love section, golf is about honor. It's about tradition. I think there's room for cutting loose and having fun, but you shouldn't be getting in fights on the course, which ties in very nicely with the second thing moving down the list of things I just don't like about golf, and that is the clothing. Golf has always been on the square side, and you can go back through the eras of golf outfits, and there's some definitely some funky ones. But what happened with COVID is, like I said, the game exploded, and there were a ton of like lifestyle social media brands like Birdies and Bumps, and that's like key bumps, like illicit drug use. Like, oh my God, we've seen it. You have all of these guys and women out there who are not practicing and improving and taking lessons, but they're buying the clothes, they're buying the clubs, and they're not good at golf. They slow the game down. They have big egos. They try to play from the big boy tees. On a golf course, there will be like champions tees, which means the hole is longer. And then there'll be men's tees, then there'll be women's tees, and then there'll be like youth. And typically it's like red are the shortest, white are one back, blue are your men's tees, and then black are your championship tees. Each course does it a little differently. They have a different color combination. You get these guys who are wearing the clothing is fugly. It's not, it's just you look ugly. It's like, ugh, it's like really loud. Oh, pink shorts and a pink shirt and a pink belt. Watch out for this guy. He's playing from the blue tees and he can't get the ball in the air. And he hits a little dribbler that doesn't even go past the ladies' tees. There's a fun little tradition in golf where if you hit your drive and it doesn't go past the ladies' tees, you have to take your pants down. No one really does it, but it's just kind of fun. I don't love where the clothing's at. If you watch the professional tour, there's a ton of brands that are, trying to modernize golf and make it more hip, make it more kind of streetwear. Why? There's no room for that. Like, who cares? This is a country club sport. It is a sport for the affluent. And that doesn't mean you have to be rich to play. It doesn't mean you have to come from an affluent background to get into it. But why are we urbanizing everything? Like, why are we trying to make it, where you can wear jeans out there? It's like, it's just not the place for this. The other thing that I think is lame is the merch aspect of golf. There's these things now that are like word hats, where it's like a hat and then it'll have like big block letters and it'll say like Augusta. You'll see these hats all over. My mom loves these hats. She and all her friends go gaga for the word hats. They love it. I'm not as much bothered by them and their use of word hats. For the ladies, the fashion is probably a bigger part of the game of golf. Merch has kind of turned golf into a Universal Studios type of situation. If you've ever been to Universal Studios in Los Angeles, like everything is a merch opportunity. There's a ton of gift shops. You always exit through a gift shop. They're a little different. It's like, oh, I'm in Harry Potter world, so I can get a monogrammed wand that's $400. And like the exit from the wand shop is like a whole nother store with infinite number of shirts, infinite number of scarves. Golf has kind of turned into that. Everyone's going to the merch table. And I have a good friend who got a bunch of golf shirts from his wife recently, and he said he hated them because they didn't have any logos on them. They weren't from the right country clubs, because just a generic Nike logo, it's like, I want it to have Pine Valley or Marion, or I want it to have the Augusta logo, or I want it to have some sexy club in Scottsdale, because there's a lot of status that goes into the game of golf. Number one thing that I can't stand about the game of golf is the time commitment. Like I said, it takes about 5 hours to play 18 holes of golf. If you have a bunch of jabronis out there in the all pink who can't get the ball in the air, you're looking at 6 or 7 hours of play. And what does that do? That breeds resentment. I am a stay-at-home dad with a podcast, and come like 4:30, 4:45, 5 o'clock when my wife comes home from the office, I can start to feel that resentment simmering, right? If I was a stay-at-home parent, my partner was on the road a lot and working a lot, it just breeds resentment. It just, it's not a good situation. Being on the golf course for like 6 hours is not helping out any marriages. There's already the stereotype that golf is this avenue for men to get away from their families. I don't think that's entirely true. I think there might be some truth to that. The game needs to evolve if it's going to #grow the game, because 18 holes is just far, far, far too long, especially if you're a beginner. 18 holes is crazy. Like I said, a lot of people use a golf cart, but some people walk it carrying their bag. I've walked several times. I've never once gotten past the 15th hole where I'm like, I'm feeling good. At hole 15, it's like, I hate golf. I want to be done. I don't care if I score 100 on the next 3 holes. I want to be done. So I think they need to shorten it. I think they need to knock it down to 12 holes and give people the ability to access the sport without dedicating a huge amount of their weekend. So, you guys, that was the Montreal. We flew through that. I hope you guys learned some cool stuff about the game of golf. Like I said, if you're interested in picking up the game of golf, don't. But if you are going to do it, get lessons, go to the range as much as you can, play as much as you can. You can do it. That is our show for the day, you guys. We have a fun new final segment in the closing, which is what kind of spider is in the Sports Idiot studio in the Sports Idiot shed this week, and it is a green lynx spider. So that's a fun one to come into the shed to find. Thank you guys so much for watching the golf episode. We're going to have more episodes coming your way once a month, if you haven't figured that out, and we're on target. We're on our deadline, so let's get after it. We hope you guys will join us, and please do us a favor. Share this with all your friends. I'm Johnny Disco, and that was the Sports Idiot.